Hey everyone, I am your astrologer, Wonder Girl, taking you to new heights, and today we're going to talk about Venus stationing, coming out of retrograde and going direct, which it will do. I have right here November 16th, 2018 at 2:51 a.m. Pacific time and 5:51 a.m. Eastern. So we're going to talk about the past, well, what happened when Venus was retrograde, what's happening now, and what will happen again once Venus goes direct. Venus, of course, rules our relationships and money, bringing some big changes in our relationships and money, which should now hopefully be much easier to move forward on and make decisions about. So that's where we're going to go. Before I start that though, I do want to remind you all, or let many of you know, that I am still open for personal readings. If you would like to meet with me personally, I do have a 30-minute option and a 1-hour option available. The 30-minute option is great for quick answers, quick questions, getting in and out. If you just got one thing you want me to look at, the 1-hour option is better. If you want to sit with me a little bit longer, consider your options. If you've got a much harder decision or choice that you want to make, or something deeper that you're trying to work out, and the 1-hour option is also good as well if you want me to spend more time on your birth chart. And if you're interested in those, you can please find them at the link down below in my description box. I also do have a personal astrologer service available as well, where you can meet with me on a more regular basis to talk about some things in your life that are going on and to catch you up to date, not only on major astrological events in your chart, which is what I mostly focus on in readings, but more of the day-to-day stuff as well with some of the faster moving planets. If you want to meet with me more regularly to talk about some of that stuff, again, I have my personal astrologer service. You can meet with me there. We can talk about a lot of other stuff. I've changed some of the prices on those as well to make those a little bit more affordable for some of you if you're looking for that, but slots for that are running low. So if you want that, please contact me soon before spaces run out for that kind of service. The other thing I want to mention before I get started as well is, please excuse me, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. I helped babysit my sister's daughter yesterday. She just had her second child, and so I helped babysit my sister's family, not yesterday, but it was last week, and I've gotten a cold that my niece had a little bit, so I'm just trying to battle that and push through it. I'm hoping that I don't cough too much or that I can keep my voice throughout this whole thing, but we're just going to go with it. Now, what I'm going to focus on, clearly, Venus. Venus right here in the chart, stationing. Again, I did say this earlier, but it's going to station on November 16th. I have this chart set for 2:51 a.m. Pacific time. I'm using San Francisco, even though I do currently live in Atlanta. All right. Venus in this chart is still retrograde. As you can see it is red. However, if I move this chart to 2:52 a.m. instead of 2:51, Venus is going to be no longer red, the numbers here, and it's going to be out of retrograde going direct. So that's how you can at least tell in this chart which numbers are red and which ones aren't, how you can tell which planet is direct and which planet is retrograde and where it's moving. All right. I actually really like it when a planet stations, and especially when a planet stations in its home sign, which is where Venus is right now. Venus is in Libra. It's at home in Libra. It really likes Libra. Venus, again, rules relationships and money. So when a planet to me stations, it brings extra focus for us on that area, doing a lot of thinking, especially with Libra being an air sign, a lot of thinking about our relationships and about our money. In Libra, how we can be fair in relationships, how we can be fair with our money, how we can restore more of the balance to our relationships and our money in a more positive kind of way with it being at home. I like this very much so, considering the past few weeks that Venus has been retrograde. When Venus started its retrograde period, it was in the sign of Scorpio, and that is a sign that Venus does not like to be in. I don't make the rules. I don't decide which sign a planet likes or it doesn't like. This is the way that it's been, that the ancient astrologers decided, and the ancient astrologers didn't even decide. They observed. They observed that relationships and money are much harder when Venus goes through the sign of Scorpio. So when Venus retrograde started, about 40 days and 40 nights, so not exactly ago, before this day, November 16th, it was in Scorpio, and that could have brought some very tumultuous changes in relationships and money. It could have brought some big endings in relationships that were not pretty. It could have brought some beginnings as well, but a lot of times in Scorpio, the beginnings that it brings are also the result or the product of a tumultuous ending in some other part of life, doing something else. Okay, also with finances, usually when Venus is in Scorpio, money goes out. We lose money more than we make it. So that's what could have happened while Venus was traveling through the sign of Scorpio. And now that Venus has moved back into Libra and is stationing and saying, okay, now that there is so much chaos that went on with your money, maybe now that you lost some money or were worried about money, or maybe now that you ended a relationship or had some like really intense, like uncomfortable, like emotional junk, drama, like trauma, all of the above come up in relationships. Now it is time to balance that out and to feel okay and to regain your balance and even your stability in some way. Okay, and I think, to be honest with you, it's not that we're just now trying to regain our balance and stability in relationships. I think we've been trying to do that for quite some time, to have the relationships that we want, to associate with people who get us, to associate with people who not only we can feel comfortable with and help, but who also we feel understand us and our needs and can help us. And I think we've been trying to do that for like the whole retrograde period. And I think it's been hard for us to restore the balance that we wanted so that we could feel comfortable with the people in our life. And I think I almost feel like we needed to upset the balance in our relationships. We needed to get some like emotional, uncomfortable stuff out of the way in our relationships about what we want and how we need to be respected in a relationship, and about what other people want and how about other people want or need so that they can feel comfortable in a relationship. I think we needed to get all these things out in the open about what we're feeling, what we want, what we're getting, what we're not getting, so that we could finally get to this point when Venus stations. And we could say, okay, now that all of my weak spots and my uncomfortable spots in relationships and money have been exposed, and now that I have no longer remained quiet about what I'm feeling and about what's important to me and about what's really going on inside me, now I can move forward seeing with clear eyes, according to the inside degrees and Sabian symbols, seeing with a fresh perspective, and move forward once again here to make better decisions now that I have more of the information that I need, and now that I have gotten more of what I deeply feel and desire out into the open. Okay. So that's where I think we are right now with 25 degrees Libra. A lot of crazy stuff in relationships that have gone on, ups and downs, endings and beginnings, emotional stuff that came out of us or that came out of other people that we had to deal with. Maybe we had to make some choices. Maybe we had to take things out of balance. And I think now we're trying to figure out, how do I restore the balance and how do I feel better? And we may have been trying to do that the past week or two, to figure out, ever since Venus moved back into Libra, how to feel more balanced. And I think now that Venus is stationing, about to move forward again, we're starting to feel like the balance is coming back to us and we are moving on. Okay, and I think it's going to be a lot better. To me, Venus retrograde is like one of the worst retrogrades that can happen out of all the planets. Like Mercury retrograde is tough, but it happens fairly often. Mercury is not really a malefic planet. You know, like Mars will go retrograde, and granted this Mars retrograde this year because it was on the South Node was like very tough. But to me, when Venus goes retrograde, ruling your relationships and money, it just is so hard and so tough, and it turns everything upside down, especially when it's in a sign of Scorpio where it's not comfortable in. And I'm so thankful that it's over. And I feel like now we're starting to get more control over our relationships, money, so that we can move forward, seeing with new eyes, making better decisions that are more true to us, okay? Especially because Venus, as it moves through Libra, is then going to come here into an opposition with Uranus in Aries. Now, this is not the first time Venus has opposed Uranus. It opposed Uranus for most of this retrograde period. However, this is the first time Venus has opposed Uranus during this retrograde period in a different sign. On the retrograde, Venus opposed Uranus from Scorpio when Uranus was in Taurus. Well, during this retrograde period, Uranus all of a sudden moved back to Aries, while the nodes also slipped into Cancer and Capricorn. So Venus is making the same opposition to Uranus. Oppositions bring choices. asking us to make choices, but now we're getting these choices from a different sign. I think this is much better with Venus again now being home. I think the choices that we have been trying to make about our relationships and about our money for the past few weeks have been really difficult, because it's been hard for us to figure out the difference between what we wanted and what we needed. What would bring us the most stability and security as individuals versus what would fulfill us the most emotionally with relationships as well. And I think we've been trying to make choices, and I have been encouraging you in my videos to make choices as well about your relationships, about what you want and need in relationships, about who is in your life and who isn't, and about what you need in order to create a life that you feel better about. Okay, and I think we've been doing our best to make choices the past few weeks and to get everything out in the open so that we could make better choices, knowing that a choice would come. And perhaps what I didn't articulate then, but should have articulated, or at least articulated better, was that a lot of the choices that we knew that we need to make that were coming up the last time Venus opposed Uranus were not final choices. They were not final decisions. They were part A and part B, or part 1 and 2 of like a 5-part decision you are going to have to make. And each decision and each little choice that you made during this Venus retrograde period is going to lead you up to this point when Venus, now going direct, is going to go back over the same spot where it's going to help you start to make better decisions, the right decisions, the real decisions that you really meant and really wanted to make, and that are now coming from a much more clear-headed and cool-headed perspective, and not one that's so emotional and is so, frustrated and scared, okay? So I think that is what is happening. And I think now that Venus is moving forward, once again, going to oppose Uranus and going to square the nodes, we are following up on some decisions or some choices or some things that happened a few weeks ago to say, hey, is this really what I want now that I know that more stuff has come out into the open, that now I know deeper what I want and need? Is this really the right choice I want to make now that I'm feeling more balanced? Now that I know things I didn't know before about what was really going on beneath the surface. And it's going to help us, okay? Just because these decisions or these things that come up in relationships and money may not be as scary or as hectic as they were a few weeks ago, however, does not make them any less important and any less impactful. I still do believe with Venus in a square with the nodes and in opposition with Uranus, which does not happen that often, that the decisions we know we needed to make a few weeks ago, that we started to make and tried to make, that maybe we're going to go back on now or do things differently or better with, I still do think the decisions that we are going to make and have been thinking about making are going to impact our life for months and years to come, and are going to stick with us for quite some time and change the course of our life forever, okay? Just because of Venus in a square with the nodal axis with the north node of fate. So the decisions that we're making now are still very important and pivotal to our journey. They've been building for quite some time. We've been trying to make them. Perhaps we've made some of the wrong ones. And now with Venus opposing Uranus again, we're going to have a chance to change decisions if we made wrong ones, or to move forward on the decisions that we made if we feel good about them, to kind of cement them and get deeper with those choices and decisions, okay? So that's where I see now. The reason why I think these choices and decisions are going to be easier and better for us is, again, because of the Libra influence with Venus in a sign it likes and Uranus in Aries. The choice now is no longer going to be about what do I really feel? What do I really want? What do I really need? You should have already gotten all of that out into the open during the retrograde period. Now with Uranus and Aries, the question is, okay, now that I know what I want and need in relationships, now that I have addressed some uncomfortable emotional baggage, how can I do things? Uranus in Aries, the sign of action, how can I do things to put my relationships back in order? How can I do things that support my value systems? How can I do things that will make me feel the most comfortable and help me live the most authentic life that it is that I need, so I can feel free doing these things with relationship and money that I now know I need to make, and doing them again feeling much more cool-headed, okay? And I think once you make decisions now, not only on what you want and feel, which should have already been made to figure those things out, but now that you're going to make decisions on how to do the things that you know you need to feel better in relationships, or to break free, to live relationships and money so that you can feel good about them. I think the North Node in Cancer is really going to help to ground you in these decisions, to say, okay, you've made this choice, now it's time to root yourself in them, to take them, to process them emotionally, and to build something new or different from ground zero in your life off of these choices that you have made. The reason why I say ground zero, again, you're going to hear me say this a lot, is that Cancer is the midnight part of the chart. Each of these signs have times of the day that they all correspond with. All right, Cancer is the midnight part of the chart. It's the lowest, it's the root of the tree. So I feel like once you make these decisions, it's going to say, okay, now you can start to build your life on a new and different foundation, better than anything you've ever done before. And these are the roots of the tree that we're planting that are going to take hold, especially for the next year, 2 years, that we're going to be working on for that long period of time, which is going to change our life forever, to make it something very, very different than anything it has been. Needing to choose wisely, I think you will with Venus and Libra. I think you've been trying to make these choices. Yeah, these opinions are going to have, these choices you make are going to have impact. The things that happen with relationships and money, especially in the next few days, as Venus opposes Uranus, they're going to have impact. They're going to change your life forever, even if they're just small seeds of a tree that has yet to grow, but will grow over the course of the next 2 years if you water it right, if you plant it right, if you tend to the soil. Okay? So that's where we're at. Once you make these choices and decisions about how you can do the things to make yourself more comfortable with relationships and money, or how to do the things that you now know what you need to do with relationships and money to feel better, and to start to ground and root yourself in this decision and in this life, Venus is then going to move over to Scorpio once again. Venus does not like being in Scorpio. I believe I've mentioned that in this video. It's just a sign it's not comfortable in. I do, however, like this transit a tad bit better than I liked the first time Venus was in Scorpio this year. The reason why I do like that is because it is direct. So to me, when a planet goes direct, after being there already, it goes to smooth over a lot of the things that were problems when it was going retrograde. So once Venus starts to go direct now through Scorpio after being retrograde, I think what it's going to do is it's going to again help us make sense of and get right with all the emotional baggage and issues that we had earlier while the planet was retrograde. I also think Venus in Scorpio is going to help us understand more deeply and feel better emotionally about some of the decisions that we made. So whatever decision you made, if you made a decision to be with a relationship, Venus moving into the sign of Scorpio can help you to deepen that relationship. If you decided at the end of this retrograde you needed to end a partnership and be with another person, okay? It's gonna help you to get deeper with that relationship and to commit to that one. If you decided you wanted to end a relationship, then Venus going through Scorpio is going to help you decide, well, what do you really, really want and need, and how can you do more of what you really want, and to create a life that's deeper, that you feel more deeply resonates with you. Same thing goes with finances and money. If you made a decision, or if you make a decision when this opposition occurs, Venus opposite Uranus, to commit to making money in some way, Venus in Scorpio is going to say, okay, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Are you really ready to do this? Are you really ready to put in the work? Or are you not? You know, you got to go all in with Scorpio. It's a fixed sign. Or if you made a decision to give up making money in some way, when Venus moves through Scorpio, it's going to say, okay, again, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You got to stick with this decision, and you got to go to the very end to make it work. Okay, again, sticking with something, being locked into a decision could not feel the most comfortable, but I do think it will be much better with Venus now direct. I also think it will be much better as well because Venus, once it moves into Scorpio, is going to make a sextile over here to Saturn in Capricorn. And eventually after that, it's going to make a trine over here to Neptune in Pisces. So I believe now once you decide about what you really want with relationships and money, now that everything, all the junk has been out in the open, and now that you're thinking much more clear-headed, once you decide and commit to going all in on it, putting your fears to the side and really getting deep with what you've made a decision about, And then it's going to help you here with Saturn to commit to creating a life that you want, or to changing your life again and moving towards that life that you now know you need to go through, that you've been sensing and feeling and working towards but waffling between. Okay, Venus in the sextile to Saturn is going to say, okay, now that you've made a decision from a much more level-headed perspective, now it's time to move forward on that, to create a life with that. And to kind of step into this life, even if it's going to take some change for you to accommodate this decision, it's now going to be time to move forward on that and to start to build on it. Okay, the trine it's going to make to Neptune as well is also going to help you to start to be more at peace emotionally, internally, and spiritually with that decision, to help you to move forward and overcome the past as well, or to get a better perspective, to get your peace with the past so that you can move on and feel much, much better. Okay, and these are the aspects, especially the trine to Neptune, which is where Venus stationed to go retrograde. So it's like almost at the beginning of the retrograde, we like saw some good things coming, but we didn't quite know how to get there. Like, that's how I feel, because Venus stationed in this beautiful trine to Neptune. So I think at the beginning of the retrograde, we saw the potential, we saw the peace that was coming to create a life that we wanted and to build on it. But then I feel like as Venus went retrograde, like a lot of mess happened. A lot of the potential we saw like got disappeared or thrown in the trash or dug up. And I feel like once Venus once Venus comes back direct to that spot it once was, the trine to Neptune, we're going to start to feel that peace we once felt when the retrograde first started. And we're going to start to feel it now from a more balanced, a more safe, a more secure place, knowing that we have gotten more to the root of the problem and made more of the decisions that we needed to make in order to support that internal peace. As to where the brief sense of peace we may have felt at the beginning of the retrograde period was only in the mind, about what was going to happen, about what our life was going to look like, about what change we needed to make to put our life in a better place. When Venus comes back, the change that we needed to make, the decision in our relationships and money, is going to be way more clear. We're going to be way more stable and secure. It's going to be way more concrete and definite. And that then is going to help us move forward feeling more stable, secure in a better way. Okay, so that's kind of where I see we are now. We're still making decisions. We were making decisions weeks ago about relationships and money and what we wanted and needed, but those decisions were not final. We still had a lot of work to do, a lot of things, emotional stuff, baggage to address. And now that that's been addressed, Venus going direct is saying, okay, I'm going to make it easier for you to make these decisions you want to make, and I'm going to help you make better decisions, even if that means you maybe have to go back on some of the ones that you made a week or two ago or 3, so that you can do them better, and the decisions you made now are going to be more long lasting. And I think it's time for you to figure out how to move forward on those things and to really settle into them and start from where you are now to build something. So that's what I see there. Mars as well moving into Pisces, and the moon there too, the same day it goes direct, saying, okay, it's time for you to get comfortable emotionally and spiritually with what's going on in your life, to pay attention to what you're feeling intuitively, and to let go of some old things, to let go of the past, so that you can settle in now to these decisions that you've made about what is happening and about where life is going. Okay? Yeah, so that's what I think is happening there. Maybe the last thing that I'll mention, still in karmic territory, these decisions will have impact and you'll be able to make them better. The last thing I wanted to mention, Mercury, very rare. Literally a few hours after Venus goes direct, Mercury goes retrograde. This is very rare. This does not happen that often, and this is a little confusing because what's going to happen here with Venus going direct is we would have just made a decision. I think we have committed to doing something with relationships and money that we've been trying to work out, that we've now got to commit to and figure out how to build on in some way. And normally after we make a decision, now that Venus is going direct, I would say, okay, go for it. Time to move forward on this decision wholeheartedly. But with Mercury also going retrograde a few hours after, I feel like there are still some details about these decisions that you have made that may not yet quite be falling into place. Even though you've made a decision, then the question becomes, I decided to do this thing, but what exactly that thing looks like that I've decided, and how exactly I'm doing it, and what exactly I believe about it is still up in the air. It's still left to be decided. It's still left to be worked out, especially the big picture questions about stuff, you know, about where things are going and about maybe about what the future looks like. I think there's just still more about that. It's like, okay, I know I'm going in this path. I know I'm going in this direction, but Mercury retrograde is saying, but there are still things from the past that I'm unsure about. Even though I'm moving forward and have decided this, there's still things from the past we need to work out. Especially with Mercury making this square to Neptune, there are still things inside internally that I'm not sure about, how I'm going to move forward. Especially with Mercury and Sagittarius, a lot of it now becomes about your belief systems. Now I've made a decision to do this thing. What does that mean for my beliefs? Do I really believe this thing can work out? I think that becomes into a focus, you know, or how do I do this new thing that I've now decided to do? Like, you know, what is this going to look like? And I think there may be a lot of us that are trying to live our relationships and our money once we commit to things at this retrograde period. I think a lot of us are going to try to live our relationships and money according to an old set of belief systems, according to an old way of doing things. And Mercury here going retrograde in Sagittarius is saying you can't spend money like you used to spend money when your situation was different. You can't earn money like you used to earn money when your situation was different. You can't be in relationships like you used to be in relationships a few months ago, a few years ago when your situation was different. You can't be single like you used to be single. Like, you have to do it differently. And I think that's hard for us because we're like, but this is the only way I know how to be in a relationship. I've never been in a relationship like this before, but this is the only way I know how to be single. I've always been this way single, but this is the only way I know how to act with money or without money. And Mercury in Sagittarius is saying, I don't care if this is the way that you've always acted. I don't care if you've never experienced this life, this decision with relationships and money before. You are experiencing it now. You're experiencing it now. And you gotta be okay with that. And you gotta adjust your perspective and you gotta adjust your belief systems to something that's more positive with Sagittarius involved, more optimistic, more faith-based, full of belief, optimism, hope about the future than what you've had before. And you gotta get with it. And I think right as we make this big commitment to do something in relationships and money that I think we really want, that I think is really gonna help us create a life that we want, have better relationships, then it becomes a lot of details still have left to be worked out about these decisions in regards to the past and what they're going to look like. And we have a lot of issues now about what we believe about our life and what we believe we deserve and what we believe should or should not happen in our life that are going to have to get worked out. Some people's beliefs about their life and about who they are and who they thought they were is going to have to change so that you can move forward into a new life, doing things different, according to a new set of standards that are more what you need now and not according to some old things that happened in the past. All right, so that is what I think I'm going to leave you with in this video. Now before I go, I do like to draw a card for you, and today it's funny, I shuffled this deck before I drew this card. And, you know, I didn't draw this card. I don't look at the cards before I pick them up in the video, but as I was shuffling this deck, I got the Queen of Swords. It fell out. It like fell out while I was shuffling, and I was like, whatever, I'll just put it back in. And now I get the King of Swords. So I'm like, clearly the King and the Queen of Swords have messages for us at this, at Venus stationing going direct. Now to me, the swords, again, I don't want to like drive this point home, especially if I've said it enough and especially if it doesn't resonate with some of you, but to me the swords are always about clarity, always about decisions, always about using your intellect, your sharp intellect, and your wit. So this is not a time if you're going to make decisions. Well, for me it's a time to make decisions, but it's not a time if you are making decisions to make them emotionally. You have to make them logically. You have to think with your logical mind to make decisions about what you want and need. Okay, I know there may have been a lot of emotions that came up in the past few weeks for us with the Venus retrograde, but this card is saying now that your emotions came up, you have to decide logically what is best for you. And a lot of my readings, I've had quite a few people talk to me, well, I really want this thing, you know, but what about this? And I think sometimes this card is saying you gotta put your wants behind you, and you gotta kind of focus on right now what you know in your heart, in your soul, in your spirit, in your mind is going to be best for you, even if emotionally at the moment you feel a little bit out of sorts. Because if you can go with that knowing, it could be either a knowing with your mind or it could be a knowing with your soul and spirit, it's going to help. Okay, I think that's what I want to talk about here. The King of Swords can also say as well, I normally see the King of Swords as one of advice. If you have difficulty, could also be seeking out the advice. Normally this is the advice of a trusted friend or someone that is very close to you as well. Advice could be helpful. When it's reversed, be careful whose advice you buy. So seek out advice, but someone you know you can trust. Okay, I think that's very important. You know, maybe that's also a message I want to get with the King of Swords. And I think I kind of touched on this a minute ago. Sometimes the King of Swords reversed. I have to remember, I did pull this card reversed. Sometimes the King of Swords reverse is a little bit too tyrannical about things. Too much logic. Too much logic as well. And I want to stress the importance of logic. I want to stress the importance of decisions. But I do think this card, this is the right way I should read it. Also has a lot to do with balancing your intellect and your logic against your spirit and soul. That's it. That's the message here. And I'm not talking, and this is where it gets like kind of hard, because there's a lot inside us, like conflicting desires. This isn't about your fears and insecurities. Don't choose based on your fears and insecurities. This isn't so much about choosing either based on your wants and desires. This is about choosing based on your knowledge that you've gathered, the information that you've gathered, your intellect, and on what you know deep down your soul and your spirit needs and is telling you to do, which to me, when your soul and your spirit speaks, comes from a different place from fear and comes from a different place than lust or desire for things, okay? And I think if you can learn how to balance your intellect with your intuition, it is going to help you feel much better, much more in control of your life and much more respected and on top of things as well. All right, so that is your forecast for Venus stationing, going direct. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this horoscope, please like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and I will talk to you later.